welcome to a Buy Round podcast special. I'm James Graham, and in this 10-part series, I'll discuss the biggest, most talked about topics around our great game.
Rugby League Roundtable.
Joining me, leading journalist Danny Weidler.
So I thought, oh, that's a bit odd that the boss of the game hadn't heard about it.
Current South Sydney Rabbitohs coach Jason Demetriou.
A powerful try.
Former Premiership winning CEO Shane Richardson.
You've got to make some really unpopular decisions.
And Cronulla Sharks captain Dale Finucane.
And the Sharks are off and running.
Today we touch on a place where I'm currently at, the management of former players.
A Buy Round podcast special.
Rugby League Roundtable. So I've done a little bit of digging and a bit of research. It's approximately 6,000 former NRL players. 4,000 of those are still alive today. What can we do to improve the situation for former players? In my opinion, currently the old boys' day, where we drink beers, tell tales of yesteryear and have cheap pies and sausage rolls is lots of fun, but probably not good enough. What can we do to improve the care for the former players? Any thoughts, Shane Richardson?
Look, we certainly, as a game, don't regale the past players the way that some other codes do. Because once again, it gets down to the individual clubs and the way they deal with the players, and therefore that club, with how much resource they put towards it, and I really do think, I'm not just saying that South put a lot of resources towards it. We didn't used to. Shannon Donato has been a major player. We have a very strong now Players Association, which raises good money and gives it back to our
So
own
a
players.
specific Souths only?
Yes, it is, South only.
Yeah.
My point about, I know what you're saying. You asked me the question. What I was saying again, it gets back to what I argued last night, though. It's dysfunctional the way we treat them as a game, because we recognise them on a grand final, but the reality is we do far more with our current players on mental health, training. We do an excellent job within the clubs now with the network we've set up with players. If players don't achieve some stuff while they're there, they're kidding themselves because the opportunities are there. The challenge you got is these guys came through where none of that happened, went out into a marketplace where the same things happened to them but with a worse effect. And it's a bit like the Vietnam War veterans coming back instead of the World War II veterans. The World War II were regaled. They're not. So what I'm trying to say is we don't have a central situation to deal with it. And once again, I know I keep harping on it, but that's why the people who are most likely to take care of ex-players are the Players Association, because that's got to be part of what they're doing.
Well, whose responsibility should it be, if anybody's?
It's a game, because it should be funded.
So the NRL itself?
Yeah, because they do a really good job with what's a change of name now to the
Family.
Yeah,
Family of League.
But
they are fundamentally it's crisis intervention.
Correct.
That's what it is, and we're great at that. There's no better game on the planet, in my opinion.
But it's minimal amounts of ability to raise funds, mate. So they'll have sportsmen's luncheons, and they do a great. This is not decrying them at all, but you ask them, they'd say the same. We need more funding to be able to set up the proper domestic violence setups, the proper mental health setups, because they haven't. It costs money to do it, and the game doesn't have a fund that does that in that level that's required. Now, whether they're the organisation or not, but once again, there is no central fund to be able to assist that. So it gets back to how the good of quality. Melbourne does a great job, really, and that's why they're such a strong club, because the ethos is so great. South now do a really good job, but across the game, it's not necessarily the same. Sharks actually do a good job.
Yeah. So just to your point there, Richo, in regards to funding and things like that. So the RLPA and the recent CBA have secured a few things. So transition and player programs, so offering wellbeing, career plans, education grants, financial services, and psych support. Yep. And they're going to set up an event where they have connection events as well. So that's going to be moving forward in the current CBA. Sorry. Past player medical support fund, so costs of injuries that they've sustained over their career. A general hardship fund, so that's for things like such as addiction, tragic accidents, and that'll be funded by the players, as in the the fines that the players receive throughout the year.
Yep.
So that's what's going to fund that. And obviously players in transitioning out of playing $15,000 annually. Sorry, $15,000 from this year forward, moving forward.
That's
into
incredible.
their retirement funds.
And that was one of the things, though, with all due respect to the CBA. People kept going on about the amount of money players were getting paid their contracts. But these are the sort of things that they were fighting for.
Well, these are the
Was the control of the money? That was the biggest.
Yeah.
thing.
So now the RPA has control of all of these things, and they're going to be delegating that towards that. Obviously, the term of these things is yet to be decided in terms of, or how long post-career can you have your surgeries, how long post-career do you have access to all these things. But I think for the general sort of things, it'll be sort of a lifelong.
A lot better.
You know why this is really impressive is because, just say, a journo, we lose our job, we finish it, no one cares. We don't get anything, you know. So it's such a nice thing to hear that the game is actually going to do things for players, you know, who have spilled blood and all that sort of stuff. Because in a lot of walks of life, we don't get that.
I would say,
Where
however,
does the money come from?
well, it comes back. It comes from the revenue raised from all the different contributors to that revenue stream.
Cut from
Agreed.
the cake.
Agreed. But again, we're talking about what limit is there on that? And I'm a massive believer in the things that the RLPA is setting up for ex-players, but the piece of pie only goes so far.
It does.
And we're talking about grassroots footy. We're talking about investments in growing the game's participation and all that sort of stuff.
I think there's a
there has to be
delegated-
a delegated amount.
Yeah, I think
the
there's-
percentage of the pie
Yeah.
that goes towards it.
Yeah.
And that's
past
what they've
players.
argued for and gotten. And that's
Yeah.
what I said before is the more money the clubs take, the less money there is to delegate to this grassroots or otherwise. So the pie is, you're right, it's a relevant pie, but there's parts of the pie we don't even know what's in it.
That's been the whole
That'd be
problem
nice
with
to
the
know what's in the pie,
RLPA
what the
is
actual
that
pie looks like.
exactly that.
And that's another challenge. the
clarity
RLPA
on
got.
where the money goes
Well,
and
there's
who's
another
getting
challenge
it.
the RLPA have been arguing all along is that, we don't even, and so have the clubs. Clubs don't know what the television deal is. They have no idea what the
Don't
fuck.
look at me.
The other side
But
of it
no
is, I
one
think,
does. But everything in the AFL is declared. All I'm saying is how big is the pie? Where does it go? And that's really, and we should get back to the fact that players have they're the Bruce Springsteens of the game. They've spilt the blood, and that we should be rewarding them post career.
there has to be some ownership on the players as well.
No, they don't.
There has
That's
to be
not a
some
great career.
education and responsibility of understanding that this career is a short amount of time. And if you want to make this career the be-all and end-all of your life, then there's going to be a cliff you're going to fall off when you're 32, 33 years old. There has to be an understanding that you have to have some investment in the people in and around you, your family. You have to make some smart decisions, especially at the middle to late part of your career on what's important to you, because that's what's going to be there when you finish playing footy. And I think a bit more education on with young players around that, because the circus doesn't last long for everyone. It doesn't, and it ends. And when it ends quick.
And Jace, how many stories do you hear? I know I hear it of former players. People talk about it in whispers or out the corner of their mouth and say, "Oh, did you hear about this guy? He's not doing so well." Or did you hear?
Lots.
You hear? Oh, he lost. He lost all his money gambling, or he he went through a tough divorce after he's living in a one-bedroom place. You know what I mean? Like you hear so much about that.
That's why it's great that all these resources are now locked in. So we've got it's all it's being funded by the players' portion of the pie you're talking about, and it's all set up for longevity of the career
And it's not
transitioning
just
out.
the Bruce Springsteens. I mean, you're more worried about his backing band, don't you? They're the
Yeah,
ones.
no,
They're the
what
ones
I'm saying, but you can't play the game without Bruce Springsteen.
But you need to look after the.
Every player's a Bruce Springsteen because they bring the value to the game.
I think, Danny, to your point about, if you were to lose your job in the media, then you wouldn't get this. But I think professional athletes are a little bit different. It's very unique sets of circumstances that, one, you are more susceptible based off your career choice, and I use the term choice, to degenerative brain issues, mental health issues, lack of ability to manage, pain issues post-career. You also have the unique position of, if you look at the trajectory of most people's earnings and how they go through the hierarchy of in their career, it would gradually increase with a few divots across the way, where the athlete, it's completely different and unique. And so you leave this game in this unique set of circumstances that not many people can relate to, and you're more at risk for certain health issues
But James,
as well when you
in,
exit the game.
If in my position, like, or in someone else's position in a similar role in another job, where you're earning a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time, you're used to having an income, and suddenly drops, you're going to face those same anxieties, mental health issues, and you can't. And suddenly you're a 55-year-old or 54-year-old bloke who has a family to support and doesn't have another way of finding a job. It's not dissimilar in some ways. So I don't know. We've got a longer earning time.
Yeah, you've got a longer earning capacity,
but not always at a higher rate as the footballers who can earn a lot of money in a short period of time, and if they invest wisely, they can make that work for them down the track. So I mean,
100%,
I understand exactly where you're coming from, but also the average Joe, they have similar things.
The angle I'm trying to take really is the lack of medical care that's afforded to the former players. Once you cut that umbilical cord from the great game of rugby league, you know, JD, you spoke about a lot of players are lost, former players, and this is great what Dale's spoken about in terms of the past players of the next generation that will be looked after with education grants and access to these funds. But I've got a concern of this huge cohort of the 4,000 former players that are still alive that feel abandoned.
Well, James, you went into it recently. Like you went from being this person of high profile, great job working in football, to having to start a new life, and that is something that I don't have to face all the time, but the average person out there doesn't. That is a scary concept,
and strange.
And your income goes,
and your income.
Your
changes
identity
significantly. You lack of identity, like you're not part of that unit. And that all needs to be looked at. I think one of the things I'm excited to talk about is we've got we had a meeting with Peter V'landys, Andrew Abdo about a Life After Football Foundation where they'll provide a annual brain, body and mind checkup to be made available for former players. Right. I think that because that for me was the biggest change is how I was treated medically. I spoke to you guys before about my hip surgery that I had. So if I was a footballer, I would never have to organise a thing. It would be all done for me. Yep. All of a sudden I had to then book the appointment with the doctor. And, again, when you think about that medical treatment, if I've got the financial pressures, I have to sacrifice my health. I have to sacrifice my health because I'm time poor. All of a sudden, it's not front of the queue, James. It's you're back of the queue like everybody else.
And the problem with that is when you finish playing, what people don't understand is if I've got to have a knee replacement or I've got to have a hip surgery, I can't work. So I'm not.
And you're
a
already
player
facing.
anymore.
Yeah, you're already facing
now
financial pressure.
Now I've got a job where I can't afford to have 10 weeks off work. That's why the support needs to come in so that the players are still able to have that. Okay, I need to get this surgery, especially for the first few years. There's probably have to be a time frame on it, but I think that there just needs to be more education in and around making sure that players financially are putting money aside or putting things into their private health insurance, because that's the other thing that stops your private health insurance. To stop paying that now, and all of a sudden you've got this expense that you're not used to, and you've got to start paying for that and all. So there needs to be, a lot of this stuff is like you spoke about before. It's crisis management. It's when you hit. Injuries are probably going to be an easy one to look after because you're going to have a certain amount of time post-career to get your surgeries and stuff like that. But when we're talking about addictions, and I'm massive on talking about the players, about alcohol and gambling abuse, because for me they're the two fundamental things that are going to derail you when your career's over.
I reckon the other way around almost out of those two, from what I've been seeing.
I'm not in any order. Are those two things, because
massive.
If you've got a gambling problem and it's been fueled by a high income, or you've got a drinking problem that's been fueled by culture, and then you finish playing, you don't have those players around anymore, and you're going to be low. You're going to be. That's a fact. You are going to be low when you finish playing.
I agree. So another big one, mate, is pain addiction.
Yes.
Most players
pain management,
take a massive amount of drugs to keep playing.
Yeah.
I know the great players.
Yeah.
And so when they finish, it's so difficult to get off that pain addiction because you're still carrying injury. The thing about it is, though, you can't see any injury a human being can't see, they don't judge.
Yeah.
If you're there with a bald head because you've had your chemo done and everything else, mate, I'm so sorry for you. If you've got mental health problems, they don't see it and they don't understand it. So that's what a lot of these ex-players, the massive problems they have is with through CTE and other things as well. But the whole thing of mental health as far as being depression and dealing with those challenges. And that's, as you said before, that's an expensive... Do you know how long it takes, for example, to get into a psychiatrist today? If you wanted to go to psych and pay for it, it's going to take you 7 months to get an appointment. Now, psychologists are there to help and all the rest of it, but the real psychiatric challenges they need... What saved Greg Inglis's life was Professor Gordon Parker. We managed to get him in there to see... And he changed his whole life overnight. Greg talks about he had massive addiction to painkillers at the end of his career. Alcohol was a challenge. He's told it all in his life. But the biggest problem was the mental health problem of depression, and he changed his life overnight.
And that's what's different about retiring athletes versus people in the general population. And it's not for special treatment. It's just different treatment.
It is.
because it's needed. I think we need to identify that and put support systems. Can't hold their hands forever. We don't. No former professional player wants any sympathy for the job that they've done. They want solutions to help them through this problem.
Correct.
And I think the game needs to do more. And I've spoke about what that doing more looks like. And welcome them in. That way as well, we completely change the narrative. How many times do we hear it? Former player gets diagnosed with issue X or falls on hard times. I've not heard from anybody in the game since the day I retired.
You're right.
Like, we hear that if we have an annual checkup available, like, that narrative completely changes. I know in the States, in the NHL, in North America and Canada and America, they have a medical. So a lot of the teams, they have a medical day the day before the preseason starts. So each player will come in for a medical. Day one of preseason, day -1 or day 0 is there for all former players to go in and have that medical checkup, to talk, like Richard, like you say, to talk about pain issues, because those pain issues, if you've got bad shoulders from playing football and you go and see your GP, they'll tell you to take 2 Panadol and then put you on an 8-week waiting list to see a specialist. And that all that does, it de-incentivizes me to go again. It depresses me. I can't keep taking the 2 pain pills, because you know what? When I was playing, I was given...
They don't do
I was given the stuff.
Keep going.
And then how am I going to find that?
That downers to get yourself down at night. But it happens everywhere. You've got to cut it out. In my time as a CEO, the biggest problem was addiction to painkillers.
Yeah, I think that's changed a lot now. Though,
it
has. Like, the doctors have been a lot more regulated.
You're right. You're right.
Because I finished playing in 2010, and in that period, mate, it was rife. Pain medication. Valium, sleeping tablets, whatever you took to get on the field. I was pumping in the last 2 years ridiculous amounts of tramadol just to get on the field. Hence why I'm having a knee replacement at 47. But the fact that I could just get them was, I'm lucky that I had a good family and things like that around me when I finished playing, that I didn't become addicted to them, or
there's a reason.
Not everyone has that.
No. The number one drug that's picked up in the NFL and gets fined and suspended for, the number one drug, marijuana. Because at the end of the day, those players are taking marijuana, medicinal otherwise, for simply as another means away from the thing to try and calm down the injuries and pain and mental health they've got. We don't. What amazes me, we never pick up a marijuana test. We pick up plenty of cocaine tests, but we don't pick up marijuana tests. My point about it is medicinal marijuana and these things are used by players to try and get over the pain and the heartache.
It's still on the ban list. I take medicinal marijuana now, but I'm not subject to water testing.
I think one of the things with the ex-players is, for me, the higher profile ones are the ones that probably get looked after. And it's the importance of having a fund and making sure that there's that support there is for every ex-player. If you've played 30, 40 games, you're not going to get, like you spoke about before about, ex-players. There's ex-players with a higher profile that'll come on hard times, and everyone in the game rallies, and we do it great around some high-profile people. I mean, Mark Hughes is probably a great example of that. Daniel Anderson recently has fallen on hard times.
Roy Simmons.
We do that so well, but
we do.
It's the guys who are out of the limelight now, back living in the country or back up the coast, who don't have that access, that are just on their own.
Well, JD, that was the catalyst for me looking to set this foundation up. I had some struggles when I first retired, and all it took was a text message to the Dragons doctor. And within 36 hours, I'm on that pathway to recovery with mental health issues. And I thought, wow, how fortunate am I that I didn't have to go and wait for an appointment at a GP,
Yeah.
juggle my schedule and have that stress of how can I fit this in? Like straight into his office.
Do you reckon that's one of the things that retired players struggle with the most, James, where obviously you're talking about the injuries and things like that, but that connection to, as you said, you spoke about being on time for something, you know where to be, you've been told what to wear,
100%.
those sorts of things, and then the camaraderie that you have with your teammates every day, like you see them just as much as your family.
Well, it's strangely about when you've got depression, I mean, this is obviously, I've become an expert with Greg's situation, as Greg's has done all the work. But the bottom line about it is, though, one of the challenges you've got is that you're actually really depressed. Training and going to training is the one time that you actually can let things, you're there with your mates. Then you go away and you go home and the depression sets in again. So you're right. When you leave the game and you don't have that at all, it's a massive downer.
Well,
that's what I'm talking about as well with that RPA stuff, having those connection events and old boys weekends,
Totally agree, mate.
WhatsApp groups for past players and things like that. Like I just feel like that's probably what needs to happen to create that connection among the players.
There's only so much that can be done. Our hands can't get held forever. But
that's my point as well. I think there needs to be an understanding that for me, the biggest problem with players who struggle with life after footy is they make footy their identity. And if you invest in your career to the point that it's everything you know and everything you are, then when you finish, what else is there? It's encouraging players to make sure that they invested in their relationships away from footy, having some hobbies away from footy, playing a guitar or doing something that's was for you. You could see that this is the be all and end all for you. I'm glued into this here. I'm an ultimate competitor. I'm going after whatever it takes to however long I finish playing. It's going to be everything. And it's not to say that that's not when you're at training, that's not what you're going to do your life. But when you get away from that, and I'm talking about when you're 21, 22, and we do that a lot at South now. We'll raise, we have an award. I won't go into what we call it, but we have an award where we'll get up and nominate guys that are doing things away from footy, whether it be a business course or the boys are doing hairdressing courses or someone's doing something with a charity, things that have nothing to do with playing footy, but we're recognising them because they're things that give you some identity away from the game. I think it's really important for players to have an identity away from the game because otherwise when it finishes, then who are you?
It's quite refreshing to hear that.
It is.
It's from a head coach at one of the biggest clubs in the game. It's quite refreshing to hear that it's not this all-in approach. I'm going to bombard you with football is life.
It's a big part of your life right now, but it's not your whole life. I think that's a really important message. And I've had lots of blokes that I've played with, and I reckon the blokes I've played with, 50% of them have had mental health issues post-retirement. That's a huge number. Huge number.
Yeah. Well, it's above the national average.
Yeah.
You are undoubtedly more susceptible to mental health issues when you leave the game versus if you didn't play the game. Sorry, not just our game, but professional athletes.
We've been playing the game since we were 6.
Yeah.
It's not just your professional career.
The only home you ever know sometimes.
6 years old, sometimes 5 and 4. It's all you've known for 30-odd years, and all of a sudden it ends, bang, gone.
Yeah.
It's like finishing high school and then starting, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to uni? Like, I'd imagine starting after again, it'd be like back into the real world again.
I obviously it's a...
You weren't being paid $600,000 a year to do
it's a very important topic, and I think it's fantastic what we're doing for the recent crop. But there's so many former players that have dug the well, and I think they've just earned a little bit more than what they currently get, i.e. that old boys' day and the piss up and cheap pies, sausage roll. I mean, we don't need to go into too much detail about some of the recent tragedies that our game and their former players and coaches have been involved in. So it's clear that we need to get a move on with this and put some things in place. We're going to take a quick break from this podcast to talk to you about AG1. Now, this is a foundational nutritional supplement that I take every single day. There's a lot of stress, a lot of noise around there. Nobody knows what exact supplements to take. A whole cocktail, sometimes. That's what it feels like you need to. But AG1, Charlie, take care of it all.
That's the thing that I love the most. I've cleared out my cupboard. I've now just got AG1 packets on the shelves, and I love it. I have it every day, nice glass of cold water, and it's really helped me with my gut health. You know, that's something that I've sort of struggled with over the years. And so it's really improved me, that side of things. I feel like I've got a lot more energy. And I know it's been really beneficial for you as well, Jimmy.
Any athlete knows the benefit of micro habits. And this is one of those. You just get a small glass of nice cold water, 1 scoop of AG1. It seems like nothing. But over time, the effects build up and you will feel the benefit. Just like I did. My gut health was all over the place, and this was the best way to start. I started taking AG1. It's got all the key ingredients that you need, the vitamin C, the probiotics, the prebiotics, the zinc, everything that you think you need. The team at AG1 have formulated this supplement to take the stress out of it. All you need to do, the micro habit, every single day, and you will get the results later down the track. And as well, the best thing about it is, Charlie, tastes great too.
You're exactly right, Jimmy. It tastes delicious. And AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that supports your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, and immune support. And since 2010, AG1 has led the future of foundational nutrition, continuously refining their formula to create a smarter, better way to elevate your baseline health.
AG1 is a supplement I trust to provide the support my body needs on a daily basis, and that's why they've been a partner for so long. If you want to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. We've got an exclusive offer for Buy Round listeners. So if you want to try AG1, you get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs, which really do come in handy. You get those with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/buy round. That's drinkag1.com/buy round. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. I trust AG1. This is a product that I use each and every single day for around the last 18 months. Probably a bit difficult with the magic wand, but is there anything that you'd like to see, Shane?
Yeah, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So you can do
lead
all the
them
things
there.
all you can do, as Jason said before, but at the end of the day, the person himself and his family have got to choose to make a decision about what he's going to do.
Agree with you. Accountability. Take some account.
So this was one of the first sort of years there. All the resources have been in place and it needs the onus is obviously on the individual to make the most of those resources. JD, you spoke about the guys doing hairdresser courses or doing university, whatever it is, but you need to be taking that on yourself to plan for life after football as well, because the resources are there to do it.
They are.
The support, the education's there. We just got to keep driving it, and then the player's got to invest in his identity away from footy, because that's what's going to continue his life when it's over. And if you're lucky, you'll play 10 years, but not everyone plays 10 years. What's the average? 2 or 3 years?
Something like that.
20, 30 games is the average NRL player. I mean, that's, so you finish it when you're 25. And that's...
Well, the average is 4 years.
Yeah.
4.3 years.
And those guys aren't going to have the financial support. So when I was saying we're earning a lot of money, but not everyone's earning a lot of money.
No, it's a lot of hard.
But they all suffer with the pain issues.
100%.
They all suffer with that.
All the same issues.
Yeah. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Round Table, but now it's time to hear from you guys. We've heard from the coach, the player, the administrator, and the media person, but now it's time to hear from you, because we couldn't find a seat at the Rugby League Not a Round Table for the fan, but we've got your questions coming in on Instagram, on YouTube, wherever you want. So this is the Tui's mailbag. All thanks to Tui's. How do you feel? Feel like a Tui's or two? The first one is from Bart Colin on YouTube. The last third of the NRL season seems to drag on forever. It's not needed. 18 games would be plenty. Keep Origin as it is, then build up the internationals to fill those extra weeks after the GF. Origin is brilliant, but it's not a growth area, whereas international football definitely is. Look at the passion of the English, Tongan, and Papua New Guinea fans. We should be building on that. Well, Bart, I agree with you that the growth area is in the international game, but I think 18 games, it wouldn't be enough. And fundamentally, the broadcasters, they want that content. They want the fans to be engaged. And, for some, that back end of the season, it can dwindle away, but there's still some high quality games, in my opinion. So look, how we manage this all in together and make everybody happy, it is difficult because, we've got player welfare on one side of it and having rest, but Look, I agree the international game needs growth, and they are passionate fans, but we need to get behind it as well. We need to fill these stadiums. So when Australia are playing New Zealand, it needs to be full. When England are playing Tonga, those stadiums need to be full, because that is what's important. We have to vote with our feet and our eyeballs on this one. There's no good talking about it. The fans, we have a responsibility to go out and support this. I'll support it as much as I possibly can, but it's on the fans as well. And look, there's no way that the NRL season is going to shorten. That would just cut the broadcasting revenue, which, whether you like it or you don't, is a massive driver of our game and hugely important. Okay, and the next question comes from Scott Ramsey via Instagram direct message. I've got an unpopular opinion, which I know would never happen because of that word again, revenue. But I would love to see one origin. Could you imagine the build-up, pay the players $100K a game, one game in New South Wales, and then next year in Queensland? There will be minimal effect on club footy, less chance of injury. Like I said, it will never happen, but it would be a huge game. I agree with you, Scott. It would be amazing, a one-off State of Origin game, but you are correct in what you say. The revenue. That's why we play a third game, that's why we pay dead rubber third games, is because of revenue. And look, it would help solve a number of issues, and it would grow and make even more hype of the one State of Origin game. But I think we've got to accept that money plays a huge part, and that is what it is. Okay, this next one is from Long Weekends 4274 on YouTube. 3-week All-Stars, mid-season, Queensland v New South Wales, 3-game series, Tonga v Samoa, 3-game series, PNG v Fiji, 3-game series, NZ versus England, 3-game series, plus kicking comp, fastest man in league, passing comp, etc. Make it an all-star carnival and get as many players as possible involved. State of Origin would be the main event, but having 3-game series between our other nations would attract heaps of interest and television views. I think this is a great idea. The problem with the English playing Tonga for 3 weeks is the Super League aren't going to release their players. And just how much I like this idea, but just how much would it take out the momentum of the NRL season? That's the only issue with this. In an ideal world, having international series and State of Origin series in a mid-season break would be great, but then we have to put the season back or start even earlier. And then do we have any international tournament style events in the postseason? That's the only issue. And then where do Australia? Obviously, there's no room for Australia with Queensland and New South Wales, and we want to see the green and gold back on the map. So it's a great idea. How we fit that all in, I just don't know. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough weeks in the year to do this, in my opinion. All right, well, thank you so much for everybody's contributions. Like we say, we can't have a spot at the Rugby League Not So Roundtable for you, the fan, but we do want to hear from you. So thank you for all your comments, your questions that keep coming to us. Please keep doing that. Listen to the episode and let us know what you think. Thanks very much, guys.